Greetings, programs, and we are back for another edition of the Nerd Cave Retro Show. My name is Jason Robbins. Derek Diamond cannot be with us tonight. He sends his apologies and texted me a little while ago, said he really wishes he could be here. But the Blue Wahoos, the baseball team that he works for, sent him to Wisconsin this week. So he's stuck in the cheese state while we do this. And says he's sorry he couldn't be here. But joining me tonight, we'll go ladies first. We'll start off with my co-host from the Pop Culture Palette podcast back in the day. She is a Twitch streamer and gamer, and she's one of my good friends, Miss Steffi Lou Who. Hey. Joining her is our good friend on Twitter and friend of the show, Molly Pop Girl.
Hello.
Howdy. And, of course, joining me, you know him, you love him. We always have long discussions about the merits of whether or not Halloween 3 is a good movie or not. And we're going to keep doing that every Halloween until he finally agrees with me that Halloween 3 is a good movie. Mr. Joey Image.
Morning.
Morning. It's almost bedtime, sir.
M-O-U-R, morning. I don't know.
But so I might review a game tonight. It depends on how long this discussion is going to go. But a few weeks ago, I had put up a Patreon post to what I was going to review, and Lost Vikings won. So I've been playing that the last few weeks, and of course, a week after that happened.
What a coincidence.
If anybody doesn't know, The Lost Vikings was one of the very first games that Blizzard made for the Super Nintendo. Speaking of Blizzard, a week later, the bombshell dropped that the state of California is suing Activision Blizzard for sexual harassment, pretty much, discrimination, horrible behind the scenes. I don't even really want to say what happened. I mean, people committed suicide because of the horrible things that happened behind the scenes of what the lawsuit against Activision Blizzard is saying. Mm-hmm. And the thing is I wanted to have Joey on because we kind of our friendship was forged over, a love of Blizzard and a love of WoW. We both love WoW and started playing WoW in 2005. It's I love, one of my very first Blizzard games I ever played was Diablo 2. And I've been a Blizzard fan for over 20 years now. But I wanted to have Joey on to talk about that. But I also wanted to have not just the male perspective on everything that has happened, but I wanted to bring in some female voices we can grow and learn how this stuff, how it happens and what we can do as gamers to stop this behavior. And it not only do I feel like it's top down as far as management and gaming companies, but and not only gaming companies, but Twitch, journalism, but it also has to be from the bottom up too, because I feel like those of us who like me and Joey, we have strong voices in the gaming community here. I've got the Nerd Cave Retro Show. I'm on Twitter. I feel like we have a lot we could do too, as far as the bottom up. So I just kind of want to start. We'll start with you, Stephanie. Kind of what you think. Because I know you as a Twitch streamer have dealt with a lot of harassment, and I don't really know how to start this conversation, honestly.
I think that's a hard conversation to start, honestly. I think what should be stated first and foremost is this is probably sensitive material, by the way.
Yeah.
Things will be discussed with the hard word, sexual harassment,
Yeah.
suicide. So if anyone has any kind of like trigger warnings or sensitivities to that, just kind of a warning. There are things that will be discussed that we'll be reading from articles or conversations, and respectively. Obviously, we're not gonna be gross about anything because that's not what we want and that's not who we are. But I just want to give a warning that this is very sensitive material.
Yeah,
But it's a
exactly.
very sensitive and real subject. But yeah, I don't mind starting, I guess. Like Molly too, if you want to jump in, you're usually better
Yeah,
at starting this
absolutely.
than I am.
Whoever wants to jump in first.
I mean, the main thing is just that, like you already stated, Activision is being sued by California over allegations of frat boy culture and sexual harassment. And for those of you that don't really know or never have like heard the term frat boy culture, it's essentially like it's really just a college kid who thinks he's better than everybody else because he was in a fraternity. And they're typically behave in a noisy or like disruptive manner. They're really gross and disgusting, that kind of behavior. So that's kind of like how these people have been acting and stuff. So that's like the terminology of frat boy culture, I guess, is like what we can start with too there. There are so many articles out there, and I mean, we've all kind of found the same one from IGN about like the Blizzard lawsuit and like everything so far. And this article has everything, like dates and everything to a T. So this is a really good kind of like timeline of everything that's going on, from like being sued to the president emailing back and like everything that has just been said. But
Steph, if you don't mind, I do want to say that if the state is suing your company, that's a pretty good indication that they've got some hard fucking evidence on you, because the state's not going to waste time and effort on investigating that shit. So
money and resources.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to be fair too, like, please don't think this is just a gaming industry issue, right? This happens in anywhere, as, and I say quote unquote, as less popular, or oh god, that's not even the correct term, but as little or as far down the chain as like food industry, retail industry, infosec, gaming, everywhere. This happens everywhere, and it's not just with Blizzard and Activision. This goes on with so many companies, Riot, Ubisoft. I mean, Odie's in chat. I know he has seen this firsthand. My partner has been a part of this too, myself, Molly. Like, we have firsthand as women experienced things like this, sexual harassment and like disgusting behavior from players, not even just like the company obviously, but like players and stuff from Ubisoft. But I won't get into that right now. But like, my thoughts, I guess, just to start, what's sad about this whole thing is like what I just stated. It happens in so many places with so many people. It happens way more often than people ever realize. And it happens well before you even hear about it in a big news article or headlines, before anyone announces it. It happens to your peers or someone you may know. It happens to people of color. Again, it's not only happening with Activision and Blizzard. It happens with so many companies and so many industries, and people just turn a blind eye to it. And it's sad that it goes, unnoticed for so long, and it takes something like this, or unfortunately a suicide, for it to get any kind of publicity or attention or anything to be said about it. And that's,
it didn't even get publicity at that time.
Yeah. When it even, go ahead, Joey.
I was gonna say, when that unfortunate suicide happened, it didn't even get publicity. I mean, myself, I follow, obviously, like Jay said, I've been following Blizzard for 200 years or something like that, and I didn't hear about that until 2 weeks ago when this all came out. I feel like that death was not reported anywhere.
Yeah, and you're right. It's so sad. Excuse me. Well, it's like too. I don't have the article right in front of me, so I don't want to be quoted just yet. But like the whole, I'm sure we'll get into this too. The Bill Cosby suite incident, which, if you guys don't know what that is, you guys, listeners, that's something too that happened in 2013. Did it not?
Yes.
Yes.
And
what year is it?
2021 now. So
and they tweeted about it publicly, and no one knew what the hell that meant except for each other. And like, I I hung out with Greg Street at Nerdtacular like in 2017, and everything was cool. And then this comes out, and I'm like, man, like I never went to college, so I was never in a fraternity.
yeah,
So
me
maybe that's
neither.
why I'm not a scumbag. I
Good
don't
for
know.
you, Joey. I'm so proud
But
of you.
like, well, I mean, you could just tell. I don't have to say I never went to college. You can just look at me and figure it out. It's not that difficult. Thanks.
It's because you're wearing a backwards hat. That's right. That's why.
But yeah, but like Greg Street was great to me, but then I read this article and I'm like, what the heck? Like this, and he wrote about it publicly. Like that, I can't. That just blew my mind that those tweets came out,
Yeah.
and like he just wrote this tone deaf, air quote apology. Like,
Just
we have to
never
be,
enough.
yeah, we have right. Like we have to be better and blah blah blah. And like, dude, you know, I don't know. It's I mean,
Like,
I'm, I don't know. It's like I don't even know what to say. Like I have friends that work at Blizzard. I
Yeah.
have friends that used to work at Blizzard. I have friends that still work there. I've
Yeah,
been to the
same.
campus. I toured the campus. I mean, it was awesome. I read all those 4 or 5 core values they have underneath the big ogre statue in the front of the building. And now I'm like, do those don't even mean anything? Like,
Mhm.
do they mean anything to? I know there's good people there.
Mhm.
I know there's a lot of good people there. Um, Fortunately, the good people outweigh the bad. Um, but like you see, I saw the some of the pictures from the walkout, and like there was someone that put a big I don't know if it was just a big sheet of paper or like a poster board or something like that, like covered over those values that are engraved into the sidewalk. I don't even really know what you call it, the courtyard, I guess.
Mhm.
And I'm like, man, this is bad. Like I don't, there's no other way to say it. And I giggle because like that's my defense mechanism. But like Jason said, or like Jay said, we've been Blizzard fans for so long. This is almost like, and again, I've got friends that still work there, and I have friends that used to work there. This is almost, it's not personal because I don't work there, but it's almost as personal as it can get, I guess, if that makes
Well,
sense.
that's the thing, and I don't want to make this because this is not about me. This is not about us. It's one of those things where Blizzard made themselves out to be a company that was all about inclusion and diversity and this outward appearance. So it was that company that you were like proud to be like, oh well, they're the gold standard. They're what the gaming industry should be. And that's
Yes.
how we thought of them for 20 something years now. And then this drops, and it's just like none of that
Sickening.
was real.
Yeah.
The not to not to name drop another franchise here, but the whole Blizzard community made itself out to be like a city of heroes. That's like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, oh my God, like these guys are awesome, and these are guys I looked up to, and developers looked up to, and games I've been playing since NES, Super NES, um, and then stuff like this, and I'm like, how? I mean, again, I toured the campus once. I wouldn't have seen any of this stuff, but like, there are just people there that how did this not come out sooner at all from
I
anybody?
know. And
I, I
and the thing that really gets me is I think this is finally the one thing that was big enough, and I hope it. The only good thing to come out of this is I think this might be the one that made everybody think, oh well, if this is happening at Blizzard, then this really does happen everywhere, and it
yeah.
finally is opening people's eyes to the fact that this shit goes on.
Mhm.
And even with you, Steph, like I've seen you have to deal with trolls on your Twitch channel in the past, and I don't understand that behavior. And I'm tired of being somebody who puts their head in the sand and pretends this stuff doesn't happen. So I wanted to bring you and Molly on to kind of ask you, what can we do to help to make better communities and Like, what do we do? I mean, I'm ready to listen and find out what I'm supposed to do
You know what?
here.
Can I just play devil's advocate really quickly?
Yeah.
Um, there's also this stigma in the air that this happens to women, obviously. There's this stigma that if a guy says something, or a guy doesn't have the right to say anything. That's another thing. Like I want to know what men can do to make women feel better, more comfortable, so shit like this doesn't happen,
Mm.
especially with people that we look up to, or by
Mhm.
people we looked up to, like Blizzard, I mean, I never looked up to Alex Frasiabi anyway. I always thought he was a jack off, but um, I'll just call him AA from now on. But the developers, the company, blah blah. But there's always this kind of weird stigma that like because this happens almost exclusively to women. I know there were some men that involved in this specific case that were mentioned. Um, but there's always this stigma that men are not allowed to say anything about it because we don't necessarily experience it. I think we should kind of get past that too if we can, so we
Mhm.
can help
100%.
and
Yeah.
you know, you ladies can yell at me if I'm wrong, because I don't know if I'm wrong. That's the thing. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say something because I'm a guy, or if whatever I say is just wrong anyway because you know all men are pigs or whatever the word is. I mean, whatever
Real
the
quick
phrase is. But
to surmise that, no, you should stick up for people in general, not just
yes,
women. Like, yes,
exactly.
say something, stick up for them, but like,
Yes.
I'll
Okay.
let Molly go first because she hasn't said anything really. She's been quiet because like I think she's afraid
I'm Italian. I
to
can't shut up.
interject here, but
No, I
no,
want to,
same.
yeah, I mean,
um,
no, because I have a lot to say. So I
Go
wanted
for it.
to make sure there was a
no,
Yeah. Go
break.
ahead, please.
same. And there is one thing that like I want. There's only one like paragraph from the article I want to read because it's just it blew my fucking mind. But like I too want to go into supporting to what you guys said, but just to surmise, like Joey, like yes, say something. You should. You in general, you being a human being, should stick up for people. This isn't middle school or high school where you're being persuaded or peer pressured into like thinking and believing a certain way. Like you are your own person. You know right from wrong. If it doesn't make you feel disgusted, then you are part of the problem.
Mhm.
Um, but
Yeah, I think. Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead,
Thank
Molly.
you.
This is going to be a long-winded one. I apologize.
Go for it.
I think so. There's two aspects of it that you've mentioned, right? So if the top down and the bottom up. From the bottom up, um, you know, if you have friends saying, "Oh, we're in the Cosby Suite, invite girls," saying, "Dude, that's fucked up.
Yep.
Why are we, you know, like challenge your guys? You know what I mean? Challenge your friends." Uh, and from the top down, Steph and I were talking about this a little bit um, prior. I think it's not just about, you know, you can say, oh, we have a diverse team, which is great. We do need a diverse team. That, you know, you should be hiring people, you should be hiring women, people of color, women of color, and non-men, non-binary people, trans people. You should be
Disabled
hiring
people.
them. Yeah, you should be hiring a diverse group of people, but they should not be check boxes on a diversity hire sheet. Their input needs to be listened to, and from the top down as well. If you are, I know everybody always warns you, HR isn't your friend. HR is the friend of the company, which is sadly oftentimes true. However, if you want to avoid shit like this, if somebody, and we'll get into this, if a person is either breastfeeding or I imagine if they're back to work, they're probably pumping. So if someone is pumping in a room and it's not lockable, that's I think that's an HR violation. Like I work in a pretty
Yes.
big company, and that wouldn't fly to begin with. Two, if and this is reported, I'm sure it's somewhere in that large document. If people are coming in and just staring at someone pumping and they have to yell at them to leave, don't hire those people or don't let those people continue to work at your company, and you won't have a shit show like this.
Yeah.
If you can protect your company, I mean, by protecting your people, I think you protect your company.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think and when people say, hey, this made me feel uncomfortable, fostering a community that, or fostering a company culture that makes them feel listened to. Like, for example, I remember I worked in QA a few years back for a phone company, and I was wearing shorts, and it was because it was kind of laid back dress attire, and this guy commented that it was nice to see my legs and that I needed to get some sun on them because I was pale, which made me feel super uncomfortable. I chose not to say anything because I was pretty young and naive and scared, but he had made a comment to another woman and she reported it. And then, so he had a talking to, obviously, and I saw him leaving and he was frustrated, like, oh, I can't say what I want. And if so, as a woman seeing that, he's not receptive to any of my, not like critiques, but like my feedback of, hey, don't say that shit. Like, that shit makes me feel uncomfortable. And if someone says that shit makes me feel uncomfortable, and you allow the employees to then be like, well, whatever, and defensive, that then makes those women or those people, those marginalized people, feel like they can't say anything.
Exactly. They're unheard at that point, and they just aren't listened to.
And Steffi, I think we're both in agreement with what Dara was saying in the chat room. There needs to be zero tolerance policy for toxic masculinity and in any kind of workplace. I mean, if you like Molly said, if there's someone coming into a pump room and staring at someone who's pumping, like, that's just creepy ass behavior.
Yeah.
That's should just be like, dude, you gotta leave. You're done here.
Yeah,
Dude,
that was on my list for sure. Zero tolerance. No, you're totally fine, Joey.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
there was in an office building I used to work at a few years ago. There was they called it a child care room. It was essentially a lactation room or whatever for mothers. And there was a phone in it. First of all, there were no windows. That was the only room in the entire building that had no windows, solid doors, and there was a phone in there. And if someone needed to use the room for a meeting or whatever, you would call first. Hey, is anyone in there? Yeah, give me 10 minutes or whatever. Otherwise, no, the room is free. Come on in. There was always someone there that had like a sign-up sheet that, hey, I need the room on Friday from whatever. So when there wasn't a mother in there feeding, it was used as like a conference room or a meeting room. But never would someone just walk in and go, hey, get out of here. I need this room.
Yeah, there's so
Like,
many problems with that in general. Like, see, at least that seems to be there's like some kind of
yeah. I think
schedule there, but
I'm sure there was even like a lock on the door because
yeah.
obviously you want privacy. But I mean, and the guy whose name I name dropped before, AA, I think from what I read, I think he was one of the guys that would go in there and say, I need this room as a conference room or meeting room, or whatever. That guy is just a jack off.
Not off subject, but kind of off subject. Breastfeeding in America is weird anyways. Like in Europe and overseas, it's always like a normal thing. Women will just be out, even with a throw blanket and stuff. Like,
we live in such a weird puritanical society.
Yeah, it blows my fucking mind. Like, and I have had family members that have lived overseas and in Italy and stuff for like military. So like it's so confusing the way Americans have sexualized everything. And right, that is part of the problem. We are obviously Americans, part of the problem, and have sexualized everything. And it's like there are women breastfeeding. Like, we've made it weird anyways as Americans. People do that overseas and in Europe all the time as a very natural thing, but we have like, no, you shun that and you turn away and you don't do that, and it's like, it's a woman breastfeeding her kid and she's covered, chill the fuck out. But yeah, there are so many issues with, like, going back to what Joey said and what Molly said, like, there aren't locks on the door. If there is someone in there, like, someone should stick up for her and say, get the fuck out, dude. Like, or whatever the case may be. And if she was alone, then, and he didn't listen, then that does create a problem. And if she is going to someone and saying, hey, so and so came in while I was breastfeeding, I had to say multiple times, which is a huge issue, that they didn't listen, then that should be it. She should be believed, and that person should be reprimanded immediately. Like, it just, I don't understand it at all.
Yeah. And like, to Valkyrie or Rose's point, like, I think that's where so much of the problem comes from, is that oftentimes women are coming in lower position roles, and men are using their position of power to promise opportunity. Like, I've even seen that in the fucking role play community. if you can believe it.
Oh my goodness.
Like
I do
Oh,
believe
I'm
it.
sure.
as an aside, so like, you know, you have these servers where you are allow listed, and you can role play on there, and it's pretty, you know, it's a fun hobby, but it can be dramatic, obviously. And like we had a guy that on multiple our server, and then another one would, I guess, almost like groom young girl or peers, who wanted to get on, like, so they were on, you know, the called an open server, so you didn't have to apply, you could just get on there. And then so since he was allow listed, he would say, hey, like, if you RP with me, I can get you on the allow listed server, and like try to get them to do like romance RP. And it's just like, it's such an abuse of power. And it's just like, even on like a fucking low level like that of just role play in a video game, like it's at that level to think that it wouldn't happen in, you know, the video game industry or the tech industry or any industry for that matter is pretty naive. So like, I think that's probably what resulted in that poor woman taking her life, is that didn't she go on like a work trip with her manager,
Yeah.
and her nudes were leaked and he shared them with people.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
with the
yeah.
entire office or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at the convention they were at, or the trade show they were at, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. And so it's like, if your boss is doing that, like,
Yeah, it's like,
they,
who do you turn to? You know,
yeah,
HR is not going to help you.
No,
No.
they're
yeah,
the
and that's the
company.
problem. Like, it's just, you know, I just can't express, it's hard to articulate the loneliness and like the isolation and the fear and the loneliness that, like, I am stuck in this situation. I have been embarrassed. I have been violated. I have been like lied to. And, you know, all of this just to help make a video game,
Yeah.
you know, or whatever the context was, you know. And it's like like I absolutely can understand why that decision crossed her mind, truthfully. Like, you feel like there is absolutely no escape from that.
It's fucking sad to hear somebody that, I mean,
Yeah.
Molly and I don't know each other, but it's sad to hear someone that I know, you know, air quote, say that she understands why that, because that's fucking, that shouldn't happen. That shouldn't be, that shouldn't be an option. Clearly.
And Molly, you hit you said the magic words, which is abuse of power. And like I said, I think it's going to have to be, in my opinion, it's going to have to be a top down thing where the heads of these companies are going to have to look down to you know, the bottom tier of management, and just be like, there's going to be a zero tolerance policy. I think that's going to be the only way that this is going to have a change. Is there has to be a zero tolerance policy for this kind of behavior. There has to be consequences for the behavior, especially like the woman that killed herself. I think there needs to be
Oh yeah, criminal charges.
charges.
That
There
boss.
needs to be like
100%.
I wouldn't even know how you would class it, like second degree murder, third degree. Like what do you if you cause someone to kill themselves? Like that should be
Yeah, there's gotta be
a prison worthy, you know, crime.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they can. I'm not a.
Yeah, I
There
mean,
has
and
to be, like-
sharing shit like that is illegal. Like, you know, like,
Yeah.
and I think, and also, I think it's also probably more in tech culture and gaming culture. It probably feels like even more of a vacuum for that poor woman as well, because in gaming and in tech, and I'm sure in many other places, but those places especially, you know, you have that crunch time. You know, like we all have heard stories about crunch time, working a bajillion hours. And so you have that stress already. And then if you're dealing with, you know, sexual assault, harassment, abuse of power, all that stuff, that thrown into, you know, 100-hour work week, 100-plus hour work week, you know, 17-hour days, what have you. it's I think it's mental health needs to be I was telling Steph this, the gaming industry especially needs to be fucking unionized, I think, because people don't get paid enough to be working these horrible fucking hours.
It's gotten to a point of agreed. It's like it's back to the like it goes in terms of like tech industry, right? Any teching job. It's the game bro thing. So like you've got this frat boy culture, you've got the game bro culture in terms of gaming, and like everyone's saying in chat, like I can't agree more with like what everyone's saying, like abusive power dynamics, and what Rose said about like I mean we've all said the zero tolerance. I don't understand why zero tolerance policy is hard. You fire them, you get rid of them, you hold them accountable.
Right.
It is not difficult to do.
And it's not enough to just say this company practices zero tolerance. The company has to actually practice it.
Yes.
You
Anybody
have to act on
Brian,
it. You have
anybody
to.
can say whatever they want, but I mean, but let me get back to the 80, 90, 100-hour work weeks thing.
Mhm.
Is there any, I don't even know if this has anything to do with what we're talking about with the sexual harassment thing, but is there any blame put on the air quote fans or gamers for those work weeks? Because if Blizzard says World of
Yes.
Warcraft expansions are come out September 1st, it has to be out September 1st. If it's September 2nd at midnight, there's millions of people screaming, "What the fuck? You told us September 1st. Where the fuck is it? Blah 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 blah." So in order to avoid that, is there any blame put on the players for that?
No, I think truthfully, it's mostly on investors, right? So
Yeah.
investors put the
Oh,
money
you know what?
in.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that.
I will disagree to a certain
But
point though, because like I do think gamers as consumers are awful. We're horrible to those companies. We need to be more understanding because we I say we okay people that aren't our age because we all grew up around the same time frame. You guys might be a little bit older than Molly and I because I'm a little bit older than Molly.
Hey, just because I'm all gray.
I'm a baby. I'm so.
No,
But
I know how.
I'm 44.
I hate to stop you there, Stephanie, but you got to think too. Like I think the whole, like you said about the gamers being awful, I think it's kind of a microcosm of what we've seen in America over the last year and a half.
Yeah.
People want what they want, and they're not
And
gonna.
they want it.
Yeah, they want it now, and they're gonna throw a
Or
tantrum.
yesterday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're gonna throw a tantrum if they don't get it, and I think that's the fault of the investors. I think it's sort of a self-feeding monster that.
But
How
see,
do you fix that?
Like speaking about that, I want what I want now or whatever. Like, I was raised like, I mean, obviously, I don't know, obviously, but my parents were never divorced. My mother's a widow, but my parents were never divorced. So I was raised by both my parents, but my mother always raised me to absolutely respect women. I grew up around three sisters,
Mhm.
and my mom. So my mother, respect everyone, respect women, respect my sisters, respect her, blah blah blah. But she also raised me on the lessons, I guess is the best word for it. That like, if I want something, and I A can't afford it, or B can't have it right now, or C can't have it at all, then oh well. Then I get it when I can afford it, or when it is ready for to be mine, or when it can get it, whatever. It's not like I was raised like you don't throw a tantrum because you can't get whatever when you want it. If you can't get it, then you just wait. Like this. I think it's along the. That's to me in my warped mind. I think is along the same lines as if a girl doesn't show interest in a guy and the guy pursues and pursues, like keeps going. Like, dude, like she said, she ain't interested. Move on. Like I think that's how a lot of this stupid frat boy culture like comes into play. Is like, that's another thing my mother always told me. Like, if you're into a chick and you talk to her or whatever, and she's not interested back, that's it. She's not interested. Move on. Get over it. Move on. And I always have. Like I said before, maybe I'm not a scumbag because I never went to college, or a real college.
Hey man, I was in a fraternity and I'm all right.
I went to community college for one semester, and a teacher told me I'd be better off I dropped out, so I did.
Oh,
That's
damn.
well.
And I became a pro wrestler.
Well,
so
my
it's all right.
well, my problem was I registered for classes a week after registration closed, so I got stuck with the Saturday morning 8 o'clock classes. So half the
Aw.
time, half the time that teacher pulled in and parked and found me sleeping in my car in the parking lot. So,
Aw.
but it was hilarious, yeah. But yeah, so it's like maybe that's why I don't. understand how this behavior happens because I was never brought up on it, or I was brought up to do the opposite, to always, like, again, three sisters and a mom, man. I mean,
Yeah.
my brother was out of the house before I was, remember, before I even remember. He's much older than me, so he was in college, and he wasn't even, in Jersey anymore. He was out of state by then. But it's just, this is how I was raised. So when I see this shit happen, especially by guys in power like that, I'm like, I don't understand why. What is the thing in their brain that makes them think this is okay?
Yeah.
And, it's
They get
just,
away with it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think that's really what it is. And I know the term privilege is used a lot, but I think it really does boil down to that, where I think men specifically, and more often white men, are used to having a world that's kind of catered to their wants and their needs. And I also think this might be not controversial, but I think a lot of times, especially in the tech industry, it can tend to attract people who are, like, we're all nerds here, obviously. Um,
I feel
but
you.
like, you know, I think people who, and this is a generalization, I realize that, I don't want to preface that, but I think it's oftentimes men who were in their younger years, like, were tinkering on computers and weren't talking to girls, or maybe weren't seen by girls. And now they are in an opportunity where they make money, where they are in in a position of power, and there's these women around them. And I think there's like a little bit of, um, I don't want to say aggression, but like animosity of not being chosen when they were younger. Does that make sense?
Oh,
yeah,
so it's the
And
absolutely.
women's fault, huh?
Jesus.
it's because
My God, I
I'm
was not
just
going to say
kidding.
that. Holy Christ.
yeah, it's because they're wearing a skirt. It's their fault. Yeah, no, I mean, and so I think there's just like, there's perhaps a lack of like some social skills. There's a lack of empathy. And there's this, when you're thrusted into a position where you have power and you didn't have it previously, you kind of turn into a dick,
Yeah.
Power
and
corrupts.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so, and then I know, Steph, you wanted to bring this up with like the frat boy culture, where they had a session where guys would just crawl on the floor under the cubicles,
What is
and
that
like,
about?
I want to read
Yeah,
it to you
I,
when we're
I
done.
don't know
Yeah,
if
yeah.
I should
did,
have started with that.
so did that mean
Yeah.
literally underneath and
Yeah.
pop up, or is it just meant they just went from cube to cube? That's the way I
No,
took it.
it's pretty gross.
Like a bar crawl, like you don't crawl on the ground to go to the bar. You literally just go from bar
Well,
to bar.
they
I
call
think.
it they call it a cube crawl.
Cube
So
crawl,
it's
right?
essentially that they get drunk and go from cubicle to cubicle. So
Okay.
like,
But are they
if Molly
literally
is,
crawling on the floor from one to the other, or just walking,
well,
standing up?
I will tell you in
So
just a
confused.
moment.
So
I
confused.
didn't want to interrupt Molly though. I was waiting till she was finished. But if
I
you're
think
done,
that
I'll
goes
just
in tangent. Yeah, no, I
yeah.
think that
Okay.
goes in tangent.
So I should have opened with this, right? So if anybody hasn't read, because it's overwhelming, and this might be, I'm gonna go ahead and throw out like trigger
Another
warnings
trigger
here.
warning. Yeah.
Yeah, because some language is used. So just letting you know ahead before I read this. It's a couple of paragraphs. I'm gonna read it kind of quickly. But if you hadn't read any of the copious amounts of like articles that are out right now, this is a pretty quick recap of part of the disgusting like Blizzard being sued over frat boy culture harassment. And this is quote, according to complaint filed Tuesday in Los Angeles Superior Court, female employees make up around 20% of Activision workforce and are subjected to a pervasive frat boy workplace culture, including cube crawls in which the male employees drink copious amounts of alcohol as they crawl their way through various cubicles in the office and often engage in inappropriate behavior toward female employees. The agency alleges male employees play video games during the workday while delegating responsibilities to female employees, engage in sexual banter, and joke openly about rape, among other things. Female employees allege being held back from promotions because of the possibility they might become pregnant, being criticized for leaving to pick up their children from daycare, and being kicked out of being kicked out of lactation rooms so male colleagues could use the room for meetings, the complaint says. Female employees work for the World of Warcraft team noted the male employees and supervisors would hit on them, make derogatory comments about rape, and others engage in demeaning behavior, the agency alleges. The suit also points to a female Activision employee, who took her own life while on a company trip with her male supervisor. The employee had been subjected to intense sexual harassment prior to her death, including having nude photos passed around at a company holiday party, the complaint says, end quote. And that is what we were currently talking about. And that is so disgusting and so sad and so fucking sickening.
And
Just,
so, like, if you're in a place where that behavior is allowed, like, that's why it continues, is because the people in power are like, it's was I clipping? I feel I'm in the red on my thing. Am I
no, you're
clipping?
fine.
Okay.
No, you're good. Yeah.
Like, it's almost kind of like grooming, and I don't know if there's like a word for it, but like making them stay in a place, like where it's like you have to, like, micromanaging and stuff. Like, that's also I'll read something in a little bit about that too, because women of color also experience like even more issues. And so it's almost like they're like, you can't do your job without us, but we're not going to do our jobs. And I was thinking about it. It really feels like women in the gaming industry, especially, or I think in any like quote unquote nerd industry, like tech, computers, all that, it's like you have to work twice as hard to earn half the respect.
Oh, perfectly said.
And half the respect, I feel like, is being very generous a lot of the time. And if you do well, I think Valkyrie touched on this. If you do well, and I kind of experienced this a little bit, if you do well and you surpass like your peers or your like quote unquote mentors, they are always like, oh, I mentored her.
Yep.
Like they still try to have that ownership over your success.
Yeah. Instead of like, oh God, yeah, so many things. Oh my, I could like go on this forever. Like, and I'm sorry that was a lot and that was so heavy, but like, that is the situation and what's going on.
I have a stupid question.
No questions are stupid here.
This one might be stupid. The only thing about that article I don't understand is that they point out the cube crawl thing, drinking a bunch of booze, playing games during the day or whatever. They're a video game company, so why is the video game thing why is that specified as a bad thing? Like, that's what they do.
That's not their job though. They're playing games for recreational purposes while they're supposed to be working. That is not their designated duty.
Yeah,
for the
well, what
day.
they're saying is that they're delegating their duties to the female
Oh,
employees
okay,
while
okay,
they
okay.
go.
So they can fuck off. Okay,
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
so
Okay.
there's kind of what Molly just
Yeah,
said.
they're not play testing or anything
I
like
took
that.
right. I took it as those like the testers or like developers are
Gotcha.
playing games. Like that's what they would do. I get it. That part needed clarification because I'm too simple-minded for that.
No. You are not simple-minded
No,
at all.
I didn't get it. I just didn't get it.
But as far
it's
as
a lot. So
as everything that has, I mean, this is as bad as it gets. I mean, someone literally committed suicide over the treatment that they were given. You can't get any worse than that. Like that is bottom of the barrel awful behavior.
Yep.
How does this even happen? Like, how did the management let this happen? Like, I don't, it's mind boggling to me. If I owned a business, none of this would have even gotten past the first complaint.
I want to know who the manager was that drove her to that, and if this guy's name had come up at all before that, and if so, why did they let anyone go with him to any like what? Send him over there by himself with nobody.
I don't know, but I remember in the with the whole Cosby like text chain or whatever, like they posted it on Facebook, like it was almost like a joke that the guy was like always trying to get girls drunk, right?
Yeah.
Did I interpret that correctly?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it's like it was enforced behavior by his peers.
Yeah, the guy you're talking about is the AA guy I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, so like I can only assume that like kind of what Dara touched upon is like, oh, outside of work, she's a conquest, like, and I think that there is like a sub, I guess culture, I don't think culture is like the right word, but there's like maybe it is culture, but there is a sub undertone of that, of where they still view women as objects rather than peers.
Yeah.
And I think that's like probably the underlying core issue, is that women aren't viewed as peers and human beings. They're viewed as objects.
Can I bring up one thing where somebody mentioned positions of power earlier. So something that I wanted and I talked about on Twitter was I was hoping that J. Allen Brack would either resign or be removed. So he's now stepped down, yeah, as of
Mhm.
yesterday, and he was replaced by I forget who and I forget who, and I feel bad because I
Two
knew this
different people.
before right. But the thing that kind of annoys me about that is why couldn't just the woman have that job? Why does it need to be her and some dude? Or why does it need to be two people at all?
Yeah. Why couldn't it just
Like
be
Yeah, I
I
don't
don't,
one?
know.
and if it was going to be two, why can't it be two women? Like I feel like there's still a hint of fuck her, she's just a woman. We need her. We need to give her a male partner or assistant, whatever, to do to do the job correctly. Why can't she be there herself?
Let's see.
I
Yeah,
don't,
Blizzard
and
President
I don't
J. Allen
understand
Brack
if
steps down.
yeah, I don't know if that's if I'm wrong in thinking that or asking that or bringing that up, but I don't understand why they couldn't, especially with what's going on. Even if behind the scenes they're like, "Fuck this lawsuit, we're just gonna do whatever we want." At least put a woman in there by herself for to try to save face or something. If that's what they're gonna do, if they're still gonna be pricks like that, but I feel like putting her in that position and then giving her a male assistant or partner or co
Hmm.
president. I don't know if they're calling it co-president. I don't think they really gave a title for that
It
now,
was
but
former
it was
Vicarious
Mike
Visions
something.
leader Jen O'Neill and one-time Xbox executive Mike Ibarra will step
Yeah,
up as co-lead Blizzard.
yeah. So
Okay, I was trying to find that
why
article.
do they need him? Why does he need to be there? Why couldn't she do it herself?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess like wait, did it list him as one-time Xbox executive? Is that what it said?
Yes, a
Yeah.
one-time Xbox executive Mike
I
Ibarra.
don't know why that's so fun. I don't know why that phrase is so funny to me. Just a one-time executive. Even his title is inconsequential.
Oh
But
yeah, here it is.
But like
like
there's this whole movement in the walkout thing and everything was like, dude, we need to empower women. Like let's fucking give them a voice. Let's show that they can work their asses off and do what we do, we being
Toothless
men.
Toothless Grin in the chat room just hit the nail
Me
on the
too.
head. It looks very much like she is a figurehead and he is the person in
I,
charge.
I
Yeah.
thought you were interrupting me, calling me toothless because
No.
I don't have the
Oh,
I accidentally hit refresh. I actually hit refresh, so I now have a commercial and not the chat.
And
oh.
So
it
I
makes
thought you
me
were.
it
I'm
makes me
like, what did I
wonder
do?
as well. We look at, and like we were talking about earlier, me and Joey have been in love with Blizzard for 20 years now, and we have these rock star names like Chris Metzen and Mike Morheim, who used his credit cards at one point to pay his employees when they didn't have any money when they were first starting out. And these guys just left like within the last few years. How
Yeah,
did they not know this was going on? That's
I
Maybe they
do
did and they didn't care though was part of the problem.
I have to I feel really bad about this, but I have to argue for Chris because a lot of people don't. I don't know if I'm just arguing for Chris or what, but Chris and I are friends. All right, Chris and I are still friends. I haven't
yeah.
spoken to him in a couple of weeks, but we're still friends. I mean, I'm wearing his hat right now. I don't know if that's tone deaf given this conversation, but it's the first hat I grabbed before we went live. Um, him and I are still friends. We've been. I mean, he's close enough where he was invited to my wedding. Couldn't make it. Obviously, I know he lives 3,000 miles away. Blah blah blah. But there's one part of that that a lot of people. I don't know if they just don't know or don't realize or don't think about. But there was a thing where Chris tweeted something about where he hadn't worked with Alex Brasiabi, who was the one specifically named in the lawsuit article, the original article, from a couple weeks ago, the one that Steffi read from before. Um, so he said that him and Alex hadn't worked together since Wrath of the Lich King, which was 2008. So that's going back. I don't know. I can't count. 13, 4.
Yeah,
Hold on.
13 years.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Steph. Uh, so yeah, so that's going back 13 years. He said I was never Alex's boss. We haven't worked together in 13 years. I don't know the month. I don't remember the month that came out, but give or take a little bit less than 13. Around there. Um, and he said he didn't say I didn't know about it. He implied he didn't know about it. But I think a main one thing that people are either again don't realize, don't know, or aren't thinking about is that Blizzard campus is more than one building, and the other two buildings that I know of are not even on the same lot as Blizzard headquarters or the main campus. It's across the street. which is across not a highway, but it's a 4-lane road, 2 and 2. So it's very possible for someone to go to work in the main building all day long, all year long, and not see someone that works specifically in the other building. So when people are saying, "How is it possible he didn't know about this?" Just to kind of, again, I feel bad taking up for anyone there right now, but I've known Chris for years now, since 2015, and to me, in my head, it's very possible, regardless of what the subject is. It doesn't have to be sexual harassment; it can be anything. To me, it just seems possible that a guy could work in this building, another guy could work in this building, even though they're from the same company and they're on the same street. They don't see each other every day. Like, to me, that makes sense that that's a possibility. But I feel like there's a lot of people saying there's no way that so and so and so and so didn't know about this. Like, I think that maybe there is a way. I understand that there may have been complacency, and if they didn't hear about it, or I should say, if they didn't see it, maybe they heard about it. But to me, it just kind of makes sense that that was possible. But again, I don't know how many people know that Blizzard campus is more than one building. Maybe everyone
Yeah.
thinks it's
But
one
I'm
big
just
office
looking at
building and
it
that's it.
from
I don't know if that makes any sense,
a
or
management point of view, as especially Mike Morheim. You've got to know what's going on in your company.
Yeah.
I mean, you're the head of this corporation. You have to
well,
know these things are happening.
the rumor that I heard was that people were going to HR about this, and HR wasn't going to the higher ups. Like Alex Frasiabi, I heard, was complaining about the HR, and HR wasn't going to Morheim and letting him know this.
See, that's like Molly brought it up earlier.
Yeah,
The
HR is there
only
to protect
thing
the
that's
company,
gonna,
not the employees.
and I agree with Molly 100%. The only way this is going to stop is unionization. And that's, that's the
Yeah.
only thing that's
I
going to
don't know.
help.
I know like it's tough when somebody that you trust and care about uh is it comes out that they've done awful things. But I empathize with the jump to defend your friend 100%.
If it comes out that he knew about it, then I will. I mean, I've done this in wrestling. I've been in wrestling for over 20 years. There are 3 guys whose names pop in mind right now that were accused of the same stuff that Blizzard's been accused of. The wrestling community itself was rocked last year by the whole speaking out movement, which, if you don't know what that is, it was basically this, where guys,
Mhm.
it's this situation, but it was in independent wrestling. 3 guys right now that I have blocked, I have told to F off, I haven't spoken to since then, that I was real tight with. I mean, one of them, in my retirement from wrestling speech, I put the guy over as like one of the next big stars of pro wrestling. I was that tight with him, and I haven't spoken to any of them since. If it comes out that my friend knew the same, knew in the same situation as now, or in this situation, say, he'll be on the same chopping block.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that if it comes out, I'm still going to be friends with him. I'm saying that I don't know what he knew or didn't know. If it, if it, obviously I'm watching the articles, so
Mhm.
if it comes out, yes, I knew, then I'm sorry, man, I can't be friends with you anymore.
Yeah. I mean, regardless, he should have known. And so yeah, but I think like I don't know, and in that wanting to defend your friend, and not just you, Joey, but like in general, it does make it hard, I think, for people to feel like they can share those stories. Because I think, and again, Joey, I'm not singling you out, but it does bring to
No,
mind, I've seen this on Twitter as well. Like, I can't believe that he would do that. It's like, well, motherfucker, he did. And like, you're going to have to wrap your head around that, like in general, not just you, but like, or any person, not just him. And like, that like, no, I don't see him doing that. It's like, especially saying that to somebody who's coming forth, that really, I think, diminishes their voice and their willingness to speak up again. And so I think, like, I know you guys were talking about ways to
Be better and do better.
be better. Like, keep that in
yeah.
mind as well, as like to when you're in shock. Because I will say, like, like I get it. I probably will not be playing Blizzard games again, but until drastic change.
Yeah, I haven't in a while either.
Yeah, like I mean, uh, I loved playing Overwatch. Like I have Overwatch attire. I've got like the new body poster in my room because I loved everything that it stood for and all that jazz. But fuck, where was I going with this? Are we allowed to swear on this? Sorry.
Swear.
We have been.
Okay. But you know, oh gosh, I just lost my train of thought. Shoot. But I guess so I empathize with that, but
Diminishing people and not wanting them to speak out again. Like,
yeah, you know, when you side with that, like it just makes it that much harder for them to feel comfortable telling you that something happened, you know, and so that like, oh, I can't believe this. Oh, I know what I was saying. That I know maybe it's to you guys and other people who maybe haven't worked in an industry like this or aren't women or aren't not men, but I think you would be very slim in finding a woman or a non-man that is surprised by any of this if this happened at any corporation, any gaming industry, like any tech industry, that if this same thing came out about, I mean, something like this happened at Google, like something happened at Apple, you know, like Riot, Ubisoft, like we touched on, like this shit has been happening. And so like you would be pressed to find any woman or any non-man say, wow, I am shocked that this happened at a tech place. Golly, like, because we've all either experienced it or seen it happen to our friends, you know? And so I think when you're talking about it, I think keep that in mind that, you know, it's a meme, but it's kind of, I think it's funny because you know that like when the Me Too movement was first happening, the like counter hashtag was not all men. And you know that meme, that disgusting, where she's like, so someone was like quote tweeted it, oh, not all men, and then when she's like, well, it's fucking one of us. So it's like if it's not all men, like, but it's a lot of them, you know, and like kind of keeping that grounded viewpoint of, okay, even if I think I'm a good man, like my non-male friends have probably experienced a bad man in their life at least once.
Well, I think Dara hit the nail on the head too in the chat room and said it's almost like a death when you find out someone you cared about and admired is actually complacent or capable of those actions. And I've had, you know, people in my life that come to find out they've done some horrible things, and you think this is a, you know, you thought this was a nice stand-up person, but they've done something completely horrible, and it's like you don't want to believe it. Like there's like almost like the 5 stages of grief. You know, it's like that shock period, and then, you know, I don't know. It's weird waters that we're treading in now, and you know, it's like that's why we ask, like, what can we do? Like, as far as like someone like in mine and Joey's position, like you know, my position here with the show. I want to make people feel like with our Nerd Cave Retro community, you know, the Discord and everything, I want people to feel like it is a safe place for everyone to be. You know, I have, you know, with our community manager, Bethany Fox, has total power over there, runs our server. He has total 100% like power over there to, you know, if somebody comes in wanting to start trouble, you're gone. There's a 0 tolerance policy for bullshittery. And you know, we want to make that a good community, whether you're, you know, you're LGBTQ plus, or, you know, gay, straight, man, woman, you know, like I want it to feel like a safe place for people. And I think kind of like that's where I can start with the power that, you know, I could help a little bit in this kind of, you know, this gaming world we live in.
Well, here's my thing to that. Like, we joke and say we hate men. even the men in my life say they hate men, because the men in my life are very good men. I don't just keep any man near me. But
she keeps every man near her.
You know, that's not true. You guys are good men. You're good people. You're good human beings. So like, keep doing what you're doing and everything you just said, and be brave. Teach your peers how to be how you are. Support women. Speak up on their behalf when they aren't being listened to and when they aren't around. More importantly, when you see someone being mistreated or someone being derogatory, especially toward a woman. And again, women of color, this happens to them
Yes.
way more often than it does to white women. Um, I am privileged in being white. I am gay. I'm a female. I have those two things going against me. But I'm white. So there are going to be some privileges I still have, but I have experienced a lot of things that we have discussed
Mhm.
today happen. And, you know, well, I just got super emotional there for a second.
It's okay.
Just support people, support women, and women fucking support women. I don't know why women are so out to get other women. It's uncalled for.
Because of the community that men have fostered.
Very, very well said.
Yeah,
But I think that's all you need to do, Jay. Just keep being you. Same with Joey. Keep being you. Keep being a good person and keep being inclusive and wanting people to feel safe, and keep promoting that and educating your friends, and hold them accountable and hold them responsible when they fuck up. Be like,
yeah,
that's not
whether there's a
okay.
woman in the room or not.
Yeah.
Especially if there's a woman in the room.
Why-
If you
why
call
don't-
them out in front of them, and then like, here's the thing, right? Real quick, Joey, I'm sorry.
No,
If
I'm sorry.
if this is my thing when people get so shitty, especially in social media, right? Like, oh, you didn't give them or oh, someone apologized or contradicted themselves, right? I can't give you an instance, but say someone made a mistake and then is like, oh, I'm no longer doing this, and people chastise them for that. No, this person is actually learning. And
Yeah.
if they're proving that they're learning and
Yeah.
proving that they're growing and are no longer exhibiting negative and bad and toxic behavior, that is absolutely wonderful. Give them the chance.
Yeah.
But if they keep, I'm out of breath. I'm so sorry. The surgery,
okay.
I still like, I have a hard time going. You hear me huffing and puffing here. But if like your buds are like fucking up still, and you're like, I'm going to give you another chance after like kind of like helping you or telling you like, this is wrong, you fucked up, and you keep doing it, like Joey said, cut them out of your life. Like, I think that's what's so important too.
Yeah.
Like,
Do you hear that, Canadians? When your buds are fucking up.
you can't keep giving them a chance. Like, again, zero tolerance, even in like your own realm. Like, no means no, and that should go within your own rules in your own
Yeah.
world and what's okay for you.
Yeah.
I hope that
There
made
was
sense.
I think it did. There was oh, Joy, I think you wanted to say something after her.
No, go ahead. It's okay. I'm collecting my thoughts. I don't know. This is really
Okay.
heavy.
Yeah, no, it is for sure. And oh my God, Garfield. Sorry, my cat's like, he does this thing where he like sits on my keyboard because he thinks that he's like taking a stand or
So
something.
if you
But
randomly disconnect, we'll know why.
yeah. So I wanted to read this because like, especially like Steph touched on, like we're two white women. And so I would feel remiss if I did not acknowledge and bring up instances where women of color, especially, were experienced it. So I wanted to read this from the lawsuit verbatim. Let's see. So in general, female employees were further treated negatively due to their pregnancies. Supervisors ignored medical restrictions given to female employees and gave them negative evaluations while they were out on maternity leave. Other female employees reported that they were criticized for leaving to pick up their children from daycare while their male counterparts were playing video games, and female employees were kicked out of lactation rooms so employees could use the room for meetings. And this is the part where I wanted to bring up. Women of color were particularly vulnerable targets of the defendants' discriminatory practices. An African-American employee noted that it took her 2 years to be made into a permanent employee, while men hired after her were made permanent employees. She also was micromanaged such that her male coworkers were known to be playing video games without any intervention by her supervisor, but her supervisor would call and check on her if she took a break to go on a walk. Another African-American employee who worked on information technology was similarly micromanaged by her manager, unlike the men on her team. When she requested time off of work, her manager made her write a one-page summary of how she would spend that time off of, oh wow, I didn't even read this, I'm like flabbergasted already, of how she would spend that time off of work when no one else had to do any write-up. What the fuck? Okay. The male supervisor also criticized her body language despite male counterparts slouching in meetings, and she was scolded for asking for assistance while others could get help on similar tasks without the same criticism. These experiences led female employees to leave their employment with the defendant.
Wow.
Like, I don't even know what to say to that.
I've read that. What businesses of anyone's how she spends her day or time off? Like
That-
not even
oh.
the fact that it's ridiculous to tell her you have to write an essay about what businesses of anyone's anyway.
Yeah, I'm not going to write a term paper. I'm taking a day
Yeah,
off. Like,
right.
fuck you.
I'm gonna sit home and watch TV and eat and get fatter. That's what I do on my days off. You
Yeah,
need me
I'm not
write
going to
that- write that down
yeah,
for you?
I'm not going to get micromanaged and have microaggressions thrusted upon me. That's what I'm going to do, bitch. Like, fuck you. Oh my God, I didn't even read that full part. That made me so mad.
Yeah. And this isn't us
Like-
obviously not laughing at. We're making levity of the situation, right? This is very obviously
Right.
heavy. That is so fucked up. That is
Yeah.
not okay on so many levels. Oh my God, I'm gonna need hugs and cuddles and kisses after this.
Yeah, I mean, and that's like touches upon like so many issues, like tone policing and stuff that Black people, I think, especially Black women, experience in the workplace, and so it's just like,
I don't.
If-
Somebody. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say one of you mentioned like check boxes before when applying for jobs or whatever. Like,
Mhm.
I've been working since I was 14. Since I was 14, I never understood why do I need to check a fucking box that says male or female or Hispanic, white, Latina? Who gives a shit? If I have the skills for the job, that's what matters. I
Yeah.
never, or even the religion thing, like I never understood why any of that is relevant. I've never been hired because of it, or well, that I know of, or not hired because of it. It doesn't even matter. Like, I don't understand why that is even legal to ask. Like, who cares?
Yeah, well, I think that like diversity hires aren't inherently bad. I think what makes them bad is when like what I think is that when it is to check a box of like, oh, we have like, it's
Right.
like that was brought up in chat, like faux diversity. But if you're not listening to those people, your product is still going to be probably likely like targeted towards white straight people. So like I think that it's not just about having a diverse workforce. It's about having a diverse workforce that feels heard and is able to contribute equally.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Well-
Sorry, I was muted for a second. Didn't realize.
Yeah, this has been a heavy conversation.
If that, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Jay.
That's okay.
I've been thinking about this for like 2 weeks since the original article came out, but God forbid that was one of my fucking sisters or my wife that
Exactly.
committed suicide. That motherfucker would not be able to be fired. I'd be in fucking jail for fucking making him do what the fuck she did. It's fucking sickening. I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's ridiculous.
And you're right. Like everybody has a mother. Like, why
Why didn't they bring up, again, the AA guy was the one named in the article. Why didn't she bring him up to not be a jack off? I don't, you know what I mean?
I mean,
I don't know if I'm right or wrong to throw any kind of blame to the parental units, but I mean, where do you learn this from? I get you learn it from college or whatever, but I mean, it's got to start again. My mother brought me up, and my sisters, helped bring me up because I'm the baby of the family. I'm much younger than most of my siblings and well, all my siblings, and like they just brought me up to respect everyone, especially
mhm.
women and especially my family members. I mean, if anyone drove any of my family members to suicide, I would. I mean, I'm trained in pro wrestling, which people claim is quote unquote fake. I can do some of that shit and make sure that stuff never happens again. I know how to do it to not protect you as much as I know how to do it to protect you. So I just can't. It's just it. I don't
Yeah.
even.
It's tough. And I think like to your point, because I've thought about that too. Like I was raised right, and I was told not to say words that I said, but my friend said them in 6th grade and I still said them, so like I don't not my I think my parents did a great job. And I think that also speaks to the I feel like we've used so many buzzwords. If anybody that works in the tech industry, like culture and like
Yeah.
all that stuff, but like it's true. Like I think that because I think that people who go against the norm, so like, hey guys, maybe we shouldn't crawl under the desks and like look up the girls' skirts,
Yeah.
and like that person will be ostracized and made to feel shitty for going against like the grain, you know. And so like, oh, and not to mention, speaking of looking up girls' skirts, there was a fucking video camera in the bathroom, like.
Well, that
Oh,
part I
yeah.
didn't hear about.
Yeah, that just came out recently. I think the last few days. Like,
Christ, that's not even
yeah,
legal.
yeah, like
No,
it's
no,
just,
it's not, Joey.
it sure isn't, Joey.
That's what I mean. Like that's the first
Yeah.
I'm hearing about that part. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that came out semi recently. I was just like, wow, it really gets worse and worse.
Yeah, every time we
But-
talk, something new comes out and it's worse than the last thing we heard.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and like, I don't like. There's a reason that I always make sure my camera is unplugged. You know, like it's because I'm afraid of getting hacked, and I don't want people to see me in my sports bra. That's for my OnlyFans. Just kidding. But if you would buy something, let me know. No, like, so I think, you know, like going back to, I think it has a lot to do with what culture is considered norm at these places, and if language that is inappropriate is common, like it sounds like, it almost sounds like they just talked like, you know, like a 2012 Call of Duty public lobby. That's what it
Oh
sounds
my
like.
god.
Yeah.
That's,
You know, like,
that's a hilarious yet true, funny in the way that it's so true.
yeah,
Comparison.
like, and if that's like, you know, like I'm a lesbian and I've said like homophobic slurs until my own brother was like, hey, don't say that, you know, because it's just like you get caught up in like learning, or you get, when language is commonplace, like I think so much of it comes down to what like the culture that is perpetuated, and I don't think, like, in my opinion, I don't know what resolution could come, but I don't think that they could hire anybody, like replace anybody from within the company. Like I think they would have to hire outside.
Yeah.
That I think that's the only way that they could be
Clean house.
fair. I mean, but then they hired what's her fucking face,
Tracy
who's like
Townsend?
a union. Yeah, and it's just like that's a whole. I don't even want to go down that road.
Oh,
But
yeah.
like,
She deleted her Twitter.
yeah, probably for the better.
I was
Yeah.
gonna bring that up, but that is a whole different can of worms
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
so I mean, like, I think it's just wild, and I think like, I also recognize, like, I've been told that the things I've said are wrong, and I empathize that, like, it's hard to take criticism, right? Like it's hard to hear what you said has like hurt me, what you have said has like triggered me, whatever. But I think what you guys are doing is important, in that, like, challenging your gut reactions to either like to be defensive or whatever. Like, I think a lot of us, especially white individuals, have had to learn that in this last year and a half about being allies and being supportive of Black voices,
Yeah.
is to like recognize that privilege that we have, and you guys as white men have, and to like absorb it before you react, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And to instead of always using your voice, lift up the voices of the marginalized first, and when
Yes.
people aren't listening to them, use your voice to then allow them to be heard.
Yes.
I think, I mean, like, once again, coming from a white person, but I think that that's a good ally 101.
I pretty much agree 100% with Molly.
Yeah.
I
and-
like the.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say I like the fact that sponsors are pulling out of Blizzard events.
Yeah.
They
Sorry,
should be.
just to bring up a. Yeah, I know. I like that. In a good way. I like
Yeah.
that. They need to learn somehow, and if I don't know if there's a bad way they can learn, but if things get fixed. But I think, like Amalia said, they need to not promote from within. They need to hire from outside somewhere.
Mhm.
I mean, it needs to be a new staff. Not obviously, there's good people there again, but the ones that are now known to not be so good need to be booted and replaced.
Yeah. Well, I feel like this is a really important episode for this show, and I want to be that voice, you know, Steffi and Molly, like you said, whenever, you know, help get voices heard that aren't, you know, that are marginalized, and use my voice to help theirs, because I am, you know, a white dude, and I have to realize at some point that I do have power, even though I feel like I'm powerless most of the time. I have to
Yes.
realize that I do have that power. So I think this needs to be, you know, I don't ever want things like this to happen, but I know they are. And I want to give a voice to those that are marginalized. So I think this needs to be, you know, an occasional thing to do here on this show. Anybody out there that's listening to this show that, you know, feels marginalized or whatever, like, they can come on this show and have their voice heard. And I think that's a good thing that for us to do here at this podcast. And, you know, that the two podcasts that I do now, you know, this show and Open Micers are, and I've been podcasting for 12 years. These two shows are the only shows I've ever had now that I don't have a female voice on those shows. Like, every show I've ever done since the beginning of my podcasting has had a female voice. Like, even going back to the Broke Nerdcast, we had Elaine Stryker was on that show, and then of course Pop Culture Palette. You were there, Stephanie, and you know, I feel like there sometimes there's a voice missing here, especially when things like this, you know, happen, and I want to help raise those voices up in any way that I can.
And I think that like says a lot about your character. I mean, for the both of you too, you know, and
Yeah.
the fact that you feel like something's missing. Again, I think that says a
Me,
lot.
me and Jay had a conversation about this the other night, and I welcome to pre-production. But I texted Jay like 3-4 nights ago and said, hey, can we have a woman on for this show, for this episode? Because I think we're talking about, warrants it, and he was already working on it. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. We're on the same page, which we often are.
Yeah.
I've noticed. So, you know, I think that that's exactly what needed to happen, and I'm glad you guys are both here. Inside, I'm super emotional at the moment.
Mhm.
But I don't know. As a frequent guest on this show, I love the idea of having a girl on whenever, having
Yeah.
a woman on, you know, whenever. I mean, I don't, not that I have any say in the production of the show, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
As a friend of the program, I like that idea. That's just, I
But
don't know.
you know, as we come to a close, I have to say that this was a horrible thing, but if any good can come out of this, maybe this is the one where things are finally going to change, because I feel like I said before, Blizzard was that company that, you know, they had those what do you call them, Joey? The five what do they call them?
The 5 core values.
The 5 core values that they
I think
put.
it was 5 or 4, something
Yeah,
like that.
it's like the 4 or 5 core values they put up front, and they made themselves out to be this great, diverse company. You know, that everybody's welcome, and it turned out it was all a big pile of shit, and a lot. You know, it's been a shock. You know, that this happened with that company, and I don't want to make this about me, because you know I've gone through the emotions of anger, like extreme anger, you know, deleting all my Blizzard stuff, you know, that all my games and everything, to where we're at now, where I'm like, you know what, there's a lot of voices out there that need to be heard. People need we need to stop with the, you know, and I've had this before where I try to speak up for people online, and I get the whole virtue, you know, they say I'm virtue signaling. I'm like, I don't, what does that mean? Like, I don't care. I'm trying to I'm trying to help in any way I can. So that's, you know, that's just what I'm trying to do here. What I can do is what I want to do. So it's a horrible thing that happened, and I thank everybody that's been here tonight. All you guys in the chat room, you've been really awesome. Please come back to you know, another time, and we'll finish this. You know, not finish, but we'll come back to this conversation again.
Oh yeah.
I can
And
go for another
It'll be
2
around
hours.
for it'll be around for a while. So, and there'll be more that gets uncovered and things like that. And
yeah, and maybe
and Joey, I haven't.
we can have the conversation when nothing bad has blown up at the moment, and we're not so emotional about everything, and we can just sit
I
and,
was gonna say,
and just
I'm ready to
talk.
cry again.
But I'm gonna go around the room, and I'm sorry, what were you gonna say, Stephanie?
Oh, I was just gonna say I was gonna show my gratitude and say, yeah, Joey, I haven't talked to you in a minute, but it's good to hear and see you again. And
Yeah,
Jay,
Yeah, you
anytime.
too. I love you, Steph.
I love you too, man. And again, my takeaway is just believe women, pay women more, hire more women of color, and be more
Yes.
inclusive with your hiring, like we said, trans, non-binary, disabled, etc. And just support women and speak up for them and on their behalf. And I think that's the perfect way you can start, to be honest. So thank you for having us on. I greatly appreciate it.
And thank you for coming on too, Molly. It's been great to actually hear your actual voice.
Yeah, thank you for having
Well,
me.
you met her
Yeah.
in person, so
Well, yeah, but that was like for like 5 seconds.
It was dark.
I can remember.
It was in the middle of Disney World. There was a lot going on.
Yeah.
But let's start with Stephanie. Tell everybody where they can find you on the interwebs and what you're up to these days.
Oh gosh, I recently had surgery, so I'm not really doing anything, but you can find me on used to be able to find me every now and then, maybe soon, who knows. Twitch.tv/SteffiLuhu is where I used to stream. I'm pretty much on Twitter all of the time. Twitter.com/SteffiLuhu. That's my handle everywhere. Instagram, Twitter, Twitch. I'm in the middle of writing a poetry book, and I'm hoping to kick myself in the ass and get my rear in gear and get that like going, because I'd like to have that published and put out pretty soon, but I got to get my shit together, man. So that's me pretty much everywhere.
And what about you, Molly? What you got going on these days?
You can find me at twitch.tv/MollyPopGirl or twitter.com/MollyPopGirl or at MollyPopGirl. I recently helped launch a RP server for Red Dead Redemption, so you'll probably be seeing me streaming some Red Dead Redemption RP roleplay.
Awesome.
I also do commissions. I haven't really had any, but if you go to mollypopgirl.com, you can look at my rates and stuff. I do a little bit of graphic design for people who maybe are trying to get their Twitch or YouTube looking real pretty.
And what about you, Mr. Image? What you got going on these days?
You can find me all over the interwebs at Joey Image TV. That's my handle on everything. JoeyImage@gmail.com. Send me all your hate mail, please. I'm used to it.
Go buy a wrestling T-shirt.
Oh yeah, ProWrestlingTees.com/JoeyImage. I never plug that because I don't think of it, but yeah, ProWrestlingTees.com/JoeyImage. There's
I'm gonna do that right
10 or 9. I don't know. There's some shirts on there. They're $20 a pop. You can skip Starbucks for one day and save that. Throw that $20 my way, please. I could use it. Again, ProWrestlingTees.com/. You know what? I wanted to start my own. I don't know if this is a joke or not, but my own website of me wearing bikinis, and it was going to be Pro Wrestling TEASE, Pro Wrestling Tees. But the real one is ProWrestlingTees.com/JoeyImage, please.
Awesome. And before we go, I want to give a shout out to all of our patrons that make this show possible. Axblade07, Daniel Salmon, John Jekyll, a.k.a. Mixmaster, Han Solo, Carlos Longoria, Staff Sergeant Sketch, Tyler Watson, Brandon Rutledge, Gus and Penny, Matthew Salmon, Randy Bailey, and our newest patrons, Mr. Joey Image himself, and Ron Johnson. If you want to head over there, you can get our commentary tracks early, and up right now is a post about where you can vote on what we're going to do as a commentary track for this month. Either Big Trouble in Little China, The Last Starfighter, or I forgot what I picked. Oh, War Games. So you can go pick out of those 3 what we're going to do this month. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out tonight. Thank you guys for coming on the show. And let me play our music here. And if you would like to email us, you can email us at nerdcaveretro@gmail.com. We're on Facebook, and we're facebook.com/nerdcaveretro, Instagram and Twitter at nerdcaveretro, and of course individually at jfunktastic and at Derek_Diamond. You can go buy t-shirts from us too over at ncrmerch.com. We are on Patreon at patreon.com/nerdcaveretro. And if you can't do any of that, can't support us, go leave us a review wherever fine podcasts are given away for free. And as Derek would say, or actually, I'm going to go leave with Wally's sign off. Live long and smoke meats.